Welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant. We do everything, we talk about everything which is Canadian immigration news and updates. And we also talk about processes, things that have been happening. So starting with our short weekly presentation, if you're working on something that you really care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you. I think same applies for your Canadian dream as well. If you really care about that dream, nobody has to push you. Nobody has to motivate you. The vision of wanting to be here or wanting to make this your home would automatically bring you here. Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date with the immigration news and trends. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, of course. Starting with the PNP draws, there have been no PNP draws. BC has paused their draws since the 12th of October. And it will remain paused until the 16th of October, until after the transition from NOC 2016 to 2021. Manitoba has also paused its draws since the 16th of September, and they will only resume after the 16th of November, so 2 months there. Saskatchewan has not announced any pause of draws yet, but there has been no draws since the 28th of September. Ontario has also not announced any pause, but there have been no action or activity on Ontario. So what are we talking about? What is this pause about? This pause that we are referring to is to implement the NOC 2021. Now, NOC 2021 basically is the nomenclature for NOC, which is National Occupation Classification Code. 2021 is the series. They change after every 10 years. The last major change happened in 2011. And after that, there was a bit of a small revision, which happened in 2016. So the current NOC system that we use is NOC 2016. And now it is going to be changed to 2021. The NOC has already been changed. It's already there for anybody to check. It is done by Stats Canada and ESTC, Employment Social Development of Canada. Now it will be implemented by IRCC. Now for the NOC, for people who do not understand very well about NOC, well, NOC is a national, as I said, national occupation classification, and it is used by several different government departments in Canada. IRCC is just one of them. It's just one of the departments that also uses the same national standard database. Now, this system is going to be changed to tier system, training, employment, education, responsibilities. That's what it stands for. And this tier system basically moves to a 5-digit NOC code versus what we have as a 4-digit NOC code. They have further diversified or rather further given more descriptive NOC codes to what they were before. 16 new occupations have been added to the NOC code. So basically tier level 0, 1, 2, 3 will remain eligible for express entry. 4 and 5 will no longer be eligible versus what we have now are the skill types. 0A and B are eligible for express entry, C and D is not. So C and D will correspond to tier system 4 and 5, and those will remain ineligible in Canada. But 16 occupation codes, which were considered currently under NOC C, have now come into tier level 3, so they will be eligible. So all this is pretty exciting, and that's the reason a lot of provinces have paused their draws, because they now need to make the changes within their system. They have to make the changes within the processes that they follow. Obviously, the NOCs in demand will change because those criteria will have to change as well. So several aspects of the processing will have to change within the provincial nominee programs. Now, provincial nominee programs are also established by the local provincial laws and in agreement with the federal government. So because a lot of these NOC codes and their categories are imbibed within their agreements and the law, that will also need to be changed so that the system can then be accommodated and they can continue with the draws and the processes. And that's the reason why all this is being paused, or this is being done. Now, this also is one of the reasons why I have been saying that express entry draws, at least in my opinion, and I think I'm the only one who has been shouting from top of my voice and at top of the hill, that I expect or I anticipate that express entry draws will also pause, and for the reason is that there is a lot of change that needs to be made. I mean, it's just not a single coding change that happens in the background. I mean, I wish it was that easy, but I know it's never that easy with IRCC. Even the smallest things can take a lot of time with IRCC, and therefore the system that they currently use, which is the Global Case Management System, the GCMS system, in which the express entry is also linked with, it's pretty old. The system is pretty old, what we have been using. I think it's from it was designed or developed from 2012, 2013 onwards. It finally came into being in 2015. And the system has this, it's still the same. So we are using quite an old one here. And whatever changes they will have to make, it will need a lot of work on the back end. And therefore, I anticipate that the draws would be on pause. Express entry draws will be on pause. But we have to wait and watch at how that goes and for how long, if it happens, for how long that may happen. But for the time being, moving along, Arima draw did happen, but it was also earlier on the 29th of September. We only obviously found out much later. They invited 1195 candidates with a grid point of 597 points, which is quite, again, high. Okay, of course, express entry was the big news of the week. On the 12th October, 8th consecutive all-program draw ever since the draws resumed from the 6th of July was conducted. 4,250 candidates were invited, which is awesome. And the score was at 500. Now, we were all quite upset. I don't think upset is the word, but we were all quite miffed with the fact that the scores were only at 500. But if you look at the pool breakdown, the 501 to 600 is one classification, and the next classification is at 491 to 500. And the fact the scores did touch 500 is a bit of a relief. So it's a saving grace that we at least came down to the next classification of the pool. And therefore, we are now hoping and praying that the next draw, which is expected on the 26th of October, 2 weeks later, would be in the range of 490s. I am anticipating that the score would be in the range between 496, 497, within that score range. And one of the reasons is because what we witnessed in the last draw was the number of people who joined the pool. And let me see if I can pull that up. Yes, there were 1,645 profiles that were added into the express entry pool with the scores of more than 500, which is an incredible number. I mean, that's a lot of people with the score of 500 and above. Kahan se aate hai ye log? That's how you start thinking. Where are these people getting this kind of scores from? But nevertheless, they did get themselves added. And with that anticipation, if that is the number of people who are getting added, and of course, now there is a lot of excitement within the 490s as well. A lot of people who were earlier on the fence and thinking when should they create their profile, they would also now be very actively making sure that they're creating their profiles. Not to mention, more and more people are finding employers who can offer them LMIAs and job offers. I know for a fact a lot of our clients have been successful. In this particular draw, we had 8 of them. So that is also happening. With an LMIA, with a knock A0AB, you can get 50 points. If you have knock 00, you can get 200 points. So that can make a significant difference in your express entry scores. So I know a lot of people are doing it, are looking for it, and are actively pursuing it. And one of the reasons why is because the scores or the express entry or the economic immigration is becoming more and more difficult. And I'm not sure how many of you were keeping your eyes on the 39 pages of the recent document that was issued by IRCC, which was strategies to the expanded pathways for permanent residence, something of that sort. And in that document, in 39 pages, everything that was mentioned or everything that was covered was in relation to people who are inside Canada or have some relation or have some connection to Canada with regards to work experience, education, francophones or the language skills, and of course the job offer. Now, if that is going to be the criteria going forward, or more emphasis is going to be placed on that, because remember, Bill C-19 is expected to be implemented or launched after the spring of 2023, which is next year, March, April, after that. So we do not know when exactly, but if that has to be implemented then, and with the more emphasis being on connection to Canada with regards to the work experience and education, you can only then you can have that vision now and see how much more difficult it's going to be for people who are outside Canada. I mean, let's look at it, the numbers right now. The scores have been more than 500 for all these last 8 draws. So roughly, I don't know, about 20,000, 25,000, 20,000, I think. I don't remember the exact number. Roughly 20,000 invitations, actually more than 20,000, have been issued. And all of these invitations have been issued to scores of more than 500. Now, who scores more than 500? If you are bilingual and you have very high levels of language scores in French and English, you have a master's or a PhD, and even if you do not have a Canadian connection, then yes, of course, you would be eligible with a score of 500 plus. However, how many such people are there? Number one. Number two, most of the people who have been able to get through with the scores of 500 plus are either people who have Canadian work experience, Canadian education, or a job offer in Canada in combination with siblings, PhDs, masters, very high level of English or the language scores. So majority of them have still been CECs or Canadian experience class. Whether we like it or not, it's still, they don't call it a CEC draw. Obviously, they're not, because people with job offers have been able to get through. People with dual language or the bilingual, people who are bilingual have also been able to get through. But by and large, so just to give you an example, if you are 29 years old, because we know at the age of 30, the scores change, or rather you lose scores for age. So if you're 29 years old, if you have a master's degree, if you have IELTS CLB level 9, with the 3 years of experience, or even if you have more than 3 years, it doesn't matter. You know it, I know it. Your maximum score can be only 469. Okay, that's the max you can score with this profile. Now you add sibling points, you get 15. If you have a PhD, you get another 15 for that. If you then bump up your IELTS to CLB 10, you can go up to 481 only with CLB 10. Now, this is where it becomes more promising. But when it is so difficult just to get to CLB 9, and I'm sure a lot of you will bear witness to that, how difficult is it to get to CLB 10? I mean, can you get CLB 10 that easily? That's why so many of you are in the range of 475, 476 and that level. Now, even if you have sibling, great, you get additional 15 points. If you have PhD, then again, great, you are again going to be within the score range of 490s plus. But what about everybody else? Not everybody has a PhD, not everybody has a sibling. You can still score CLB 10, which is in your hands, but CLB 10 with 29 years of age, you are still at 481. Where is the opportunity for you to sort of get through? So this is where it is becoming more and more difficult. This is the reason why more and more people are jumping into the bandwagon to try and find employers who can support them, or they're coming to Canada to sort of pursue as international students so that they can add those 15 points for 1-year diploma, 2-year program, and then get a work permit and then Canadian work experience points. Because even with Bill C-19 and how the programs are processing or rather progressing forward, you will be looking at more in Canada attention being given. That is how everything is looking like at this point of time. I hate to be the bearer of the bad news, and I hate to be sort of sounding those alarm bells, but this is what everything is indicating, especially the 39-page document. If you haven't seen it, you should take a look at it. Also, what people should always be aware of, that don't fall for the false narrative that is being given to you by all these agents and consultants out there. Don't fall for it, because they will always try and say, oh, international mobility program, no IELTS, no LMIA, get the job offer, ask them under what stream of international mobility program, because it's not easy. Trust me, if it was so easy, they themselves, the agents themselves, should be on the first flight coming to Canada. Okay, you should be asking them, ask them or their staff if they can themselves make it to Canada with their background and their profile and their factors. No, if it was that easy, why do we have 240,000 people in the express entry pool at this point of time? It's not easy. And that is the reason why people should be more careful before they part with their money to all these agents and all these consultants and lawyers, whoever that might be, who are trying to give you that kind of false narrative. It is still possible, but it's difficult. And now the most preferred or most popular program is going to be Saskatchewan, because Saskatchewan still has a great option in terms that if you have 10 years of work experience in the same NOC code, Saskatchewan is a great option, because you can actually, even at the age of 34, you can still get 70 points with Saskatchewan. Only CLB 8 is what is needed for your language scores. 10 years of work experience, same NOC code, and bam, you are at 70 points with Saskatchewan, and a great option to get through. Even if you are over the age of 35, and let's say until the age of 44, but you have your language scores sorted out, which is CLB 8, you have a master's degree, you have 10 years of experience, same NOC code within the last 10 years, Again, you can get 68. And we have very recently seen Saskatchewan actively inviting people right down to the scores of 60, 61, 67, 68, 69, 70. So lots and lots of people have taken advantage of that. So if you're one of them, then I congratulate you. But going forward also, Saskatchewan is going to be a very, very popular province in those aspects. Second one would then become Ontario. But for Ontario also, you need very high level of CRS scores. So Ontario CRS scores always play in tandem with Express Entry. They usually go 1 point less than the Express Entry for the high range of scores. But recently, the last draw that Ontario did for the human capital priorities under the tech draw was at 496. Now, I know at 496, a lot of you thought that there is no point because Express Entry scores by themselves will come down. But with the recent draw at 500, it has scared a lot of people. And I personally know a lot of people who are now opting to go with Ontario instead of waiting for Express Entry because, hey, a bird in hand is better than the two in the bush. And that's the reason why it is becoming more scarier. But as the Express Entry scores drop, and they will continue to drop, no two ways about it, the Ontario scores will also be on the lower side. But so basically what will happen is, for example, if the scores are in the range of 500 plus, the Ontario scores are going to be in the 490s. If the Express Entry scores are in the 490s, Ontario scores will be in the 480s. If Express Entry scores are in the 480s, you will see the Ontario scores will go down to 470s, may even go down to the high 460s at that point of time. It all depends on how many invitations they want to send out and how many people with that occupation code are in the Express Entry pool at that point of time. That is what will decide what the scores and the occupation codes and how they will rank. But at any point of time, if you get invited, I mean, I know it's $1,500 additional dollars that you might have to spend, but I would always recommend to take it, grab it, and move on with it. Don't lose your sleep over when would be the next Express Entry draw. Because mind you, if Express Entry draws do take a pause in November, if it does happen, I hope not. I really, really hope it does not. But if it does happen, the scores are not going to drop. The scores are going to go way up again, cross 500. Okay, and that's how it is. That's how the numbers are. And it's not, I know a lot of people say IRCC is doing it. IRCC is not doing it. They are not the ones who are controlling the scores. It's the people. The more the number of people, the higher the scores. The less the number of people, lower the scores. It's simple maths. It's a demand and supply. So it's not IRCC who's regulating the scores. What they're regulating is the number of invitations. And I mean, if there is anything, we are seeing each year, each draw, they have been adding increments of 500. So 4250 was the last draw. Moving forward, will they go to 4750 or not is something to be seen. I hope they do go to 4750. But I think they're going to stick around to 4,500 kind of a number. But I definitely hope they go to 4,750 and even to 5,000 from there on. But let's see how that one plays out. But this is basically what you should be aware of, what you should be looking at, how you should be preparing and planning your journey. If you can get to Canada, get to Canada. And when I'm saying get to Canada, I don't mean on a visit visa. What I'm trying to say is get to Canada as an international student. If you can find a job offer or an employer who can support you, then most definitely do that. Right, so we were talking about the Express Entry, done with that. In other news, Parents and Grandparents program has been launched for 2022. Now, this is again where IRCC played a googly, or rather they bowled a googly to all the people who have been anxiously waiting. Earlier, what would happen is that IRCC would invite expressions of interest from eligible children in Canada who would then be able to sponsor their parents or grandparents. This time, or same like last year, what they did is they did not invite new expressions of interest. However, they chose to use the same pool of expression of interest that were filed in 2020. So in 2020, when they had invited people to file their expressions of interest, obviously people did that. In 2021, they used the same pool. And now in 2022, they are again using the same pool from 2020, which basically means a lot of people who were anxiously waiting to bring their parents into Canada are now left out of it. They can't do anything. So in this particular announcement, what IRCC has said is that they're inviting under the PGP lottery, Parents Grandparents Lottery. They will be issuing 23,100 invitations, from which they expect that 15,000 completed applications will be received and processed. That is the idea. This year, the quota for Parents Grandparents is 25,000. So if they will issue 15,000, that basically means one application may have, 2 parents, so that will count towards the 25,000 quota that they're looking for to fill up for this year. So that's how it's going to look like for the parents, grandparents. Of course, whoever has received the invitation, because you should have been receiving an email. If you did file for your expression of interest in 2020, keep an eye on your spam folder as well. And if you have received it, congratulations. Trust me, this is a great one. Make sure you make good use of it. And to be eligible to apply, the most important factor is your eligibility as per your income. So make sure you have sufficient income as per those eligibility requirements, and then you would be able to submit your application. The application by itself is pretty simple and straightforward, nothing complicated there. But congratulations if you get the invitation. Well, that's just about it. Connect with us on social media. As I said, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as well. And if you're still here, then boop the like button so we can get this video out to more people. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, then please do subscribe, because I, for one, would like to see those numbers going up. Now, what else did I want to talk to you about? International students, right? Now, international students, we already know that they got the exemption from the 20 hour per week. Now they can work full-time from the 15th of November. I mean, I'm quite happy, because there are 2 or 3 international students who work in our office, who work with us. And I'm so happy that they can now actually work full-time from the 15th of November onwards, because there are a lot of people who said, how will they manage the course load? Well, a lot of the studies are happening online, and they have a very small, or rather less course load versus a lot of other people. My own son, he is studying in Canada at this point. I mean, he is a permanent resident, but he's studying. But even when he's studying, he manages his course load quite all right, along with working 40 hours per week. I mean, I know it's a stretch, but well, hell, he does it. And I know for a fact it can be done if people wanted to do it. But it's a flexibility. So it's a great thing. But what I want to talk to you about studying in Canada is something else. Now, with this rush to Canada, because it's getting late, because you may not be able to get through with the programs, a lot of people again are talking about converting visit visa to work permit or visit visa to study permit. First of all, I want to make that clear. There is no such thing as converting your status. It doesn't happen automatically. Yes, you can apply for change of status, and I guess that is what people refer to as converting one application to another, but you're not converting anything. You have to apply, and applying basically means you have to comply with the requirements of the program that you are applying under, or you're applying for change of status, for example. Now, one of the biggest ones where people are really fooled by a lot of these so-called agents and scammers is that you come to Canada on a visit visa and then you change or convert it to study visa or study permit. First of all, as I said, you cannot convert a study visa. Sorry, you cannot convert a visit visa to study visa. So the conversion, if at all, that is what they're talking about, is by change of status. Yes, it's possible, of course. However, and that's always however there, and there is always a but there. If you are in Canada on a visit visa, you cannot apply for study visa from inside Canada unless you comply with a certain criteria, which are very strict ones, and I will show them to you. Otherwise, even if you're inside Canada and you're applying for a study permit, your application will be treated as having applied from outside Canada, and you are given absolutely no advantage for the fact that you are on a visit visa, you have an approved visit visa, you're inside Canada. You get zero advantage for that. So don't get fooled by believing that only if you come to Canada on a visit visa can you apply for a study visa and you will get it easily and it will be like a walk in the park. It's not. So let me show you where that aspect is. So this is again the IRCC website. If you just Google study permit, how to apply IRCC, you should be able to come to this link. And I'm going to sort of quickly scroll down. And here it says, where are you applying from? Okay. If I say outside Canada, it will give me the checklist of outside Canada. If I say inside Canada, what it does is, if I say, let's say outside, it says, how do you want to apply? So it's very simple, straightforward. If I say inside Canada, the next question it says, only some people can apply for study permit from inside Canada. Does any of this situation, describe you? Are you a Ukrainian national? If you are, then yes, you can apply for a study permit. Do you have a valid study permit or a work permit? Do you already have that? And if it applies to you, then good. Your spouse, common law partner, or parent has a valid study or work permit. if that applies to you, then again, so for example, spouses of people who are already studying in Canada, who are working in Canada, they can definitely apply for study permit from inside Canada. We're not talking about that. We're talking if you're in Canada on a visit visa and you are primarily from countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, Nigeria, Kenya, all the countries from a lot of people where they're being misled into believing you come to Canada on a visit visa and convert. So we're talking about them. You will realize most of these do not apply to you at all. The only thing which will allow you to get a study permit, or which will allow you to apply for a study permit, is that if you come to Canada on a visit visa and you enroll yourself in a course which is of a short duration, which is less than 6 months. So if you study in Canada for less than 6 months, you can study on a visit visa. There is no problem. You don't need a study permit for that. You don't need any special permission for that. If you have a visit visa, you come to Canada, you can obviously reside in Canada for 6 months. That is usually the period of stay given to you, unless the border officer thinks otherwise. But during this period of time, you can study for a course which is less than 6 months. Now, if you complete a short-term course, which is considered as a prerequisite, which is required for a longer duration of program at a DLI, which is Designated Learning Institute, then and only then, in your condition, as you were explaining earlier, you may be able to apply for a study visa or a study permit from inside Canada to be processed inside Canada. Now, the reason why a lot of people want to do this is because the approval rate or the success rate is extremely high for the study permit applications approved inside Canada versus outside Canada. Outside Canada, we just saw the latest data from India itself. The approval rate was only 27% for this year, which is from 1st Jan to 30th of June. From India, the approval rate was only 27%, while inside Canada, it is more than 90%. So obviously people want to do that. But keep in mind, only if you have completed a short-term course, which is less than 6 months, which is considered to be a prerequisite of a longer duration of program. Now, trust me, when you will try to look for this kind of a course, you will have a lot of difficulty finding one. And you will not be able to find such a course because there are very, very few courses. One such course that a lot of people do use is the English as Second Language, ESL course. So they come to Canada, they will study English as Second Language course, and then using that prerequisite, because in order to study a longer duration course, you need to obviously have a acceptable or reasonable level of English. They will use this course, or having studied this course, to comply with the requirement of prerequisite. And this is how they will be able to apply for a study visa in Canada. Now, usually the fee for these short courses or the short duration of courses is about $5,000 to $10,000. So you have to account for that additional expense as well. But this is how you can convert visit visa to study visa. So please don't fall for that narrative and people tell you it's very easy. Just go there. Once you land there, just apply for study visa. It's very easy. You will get it. You don't get it. In most cases, if you're inside Canada and you try to apply for a study visa from inside Canada, thinking it will be processed inside Canada, just by getting an acceptance letter from any of the colleges, you will be refused because you are not eligible. So please always check IRCC website for the detailed information as to what would your eligibility criteria be, and then take it from there on. Right. Let's move forward and see what the questions are looking like. Postgraduate work permit expired or expiring, I do not know. In November, applied for work permit extension. In August, including spouse open work permit. IRCC sent a new work permit under the 18-month extension policy. What can I do that spouse can get work permit extension? Well, if you've applied for your spouse's open work permit extension, I hope you did provide your employment letter and your at least 4 recent pay stubs. If you did, then you should be fine within that application itself. If you did not, then apply for your spouse's open work permit based on your approved work permit, employment letter which shows that you're working for a job which is not 0A or B, and with 4 pay stubs, and that is how you'll be able to get it done. Do people with French CLB 6 be invited after Bill C-19? Looks very difficult. Francophones will certainly have a bit of advantage for sure, but I'm not sure if CLB 6 would be, because CLB 6 would not make you eligible in express entry if that is the only language that you have. And if you're not eligible in express entry, then there is nothing you would be eligible for at all, especially with express entry. Should I make Ontario profile with 490 CRS knock 1111? If you are targeting Ontario's human capital priority stream, you don't need to make a profile on Ontario. You just need to have an active express entry profile. That's all. If if Ontario is then choosing to invite your profile based on your occupation code, then you would receive an invitation in your express entry profile or account itself. You don't need to do anything different to sort of apply to Ontario for the human capital priority stream. All right, let's look at the questions which came in earlier. After receiving stamped passport from New Delhi Visa Office, I have gone through hernia surgery. Now I'm fully recovered without any complications. Do I need to inform IRCC before landing? Well, in this case, you don't need to. There is nothing complicated over here. You're fully fit and you're absolutely fine. So I wish you all the best. Safe travels. For a person who's in high school, has a brother who's a Canadian citizen, what are the ways to go to Canada to continue high school education in Canada? First thing you can do is check cic.gc.ca, which is the Canadian immigration website, and then look at different options that are available for immigrating to Canada or for traveling to Canada, and see where you are eligible and apply as for that. If I get an invitation 10 to 15 days before my flight date and submit all the documents before going, can I still travel to my home country? Do I have to reapply for PCC again if I already have it? If you have already submitted your application, paid the fees, you have your AOR, you can travel wherever you wish to travel. You do not need any new PCCs at that point of time. If I get visitor visa, which province I choose to get trade skill work job offer easily? Well, if you expect to get a construction electrician's job, you would need the provincial level regulatory certificate or license or certificate, whatever you want to call it. So first thing what you need to do is get that. And if you can get that, then you would be able to get your job or a job offer as well. Can you share your thoughts on proposed regulatory amendments posted on Ontario's updates? They have suggested that international student stream will be affected. No, I haven't really gone through it in detail, but the international student stream that they're talking about to be affected, which basically will make it easier, because at this point of time, for people who are applying under the international graduate streams, there are certain education requirements or what they would have completed or they should have completed from their amendments. They are looking to relax that stream so that more students can become eligible with that. We did this. Waiting at 493, expecting the 9th November draw. Well, wish you all the very best. Documents required for cash foreign work experience. If you are applying for your permanent residence application and you were paid in cash, well, first of all, cash salary is not a problem. There is no issues in you having received salary in cash. There is no law, there is no technicality on IRCC which says anything about salary, cash salary not being acceptable. So that's the first thing you don't have to worry about. In order to prove, now you do have to prove that you were remunerated, you were paid. So whether you provide cash salary certificate or you provide cash vouchers or payment vouchers or salary slips or even a register where you have signed where it says that you were paid for each of these months, all of that would work for you in your case, because the most important criteria is for you to be able to prove that you were indeed paid. And that is the biggest problem with cash salaries, because there is no proof of payment. So unless you have cash salary payment vouchers or salary vouchers or cash vouchers or pay slips or pay stubs, and in addition to that, also get a cash salary certificate from your employer, which basically states that this individual was working with us from this date to this date as this, whatever the title, the job position might be, and he or she was paid in cash for this duration of their work experience, then that also is quite absolutely fine and acceptable. Waiting for PR, do you think all backlogs will be covered until December 2022? Well, I'm certainly hoping so, that they do cover most of their backlogs, but I know there will be a few applications which will still get carried over. Do we have to translate bank statements for Federal Skilled Worker Program? What can I do if I don't have pay slips and the company paid me in cash? Well, we just covered the fact of payment in cash, and if you're providing bank statements which is not in English or French, then yes, you do have to translate them as well. What is the process after application received? PR application, bio, medical pass, and background also done. I'm not sure what do you mean So if your PR application, biometrics is done, medical is passed, background is also done, then I think it's only criminality and security, and you can just wait for that to be finished and processed. I have LMIA job offer but not applied for work permit, expecting ITA as federal skilled worker. Do I need to show proof of funds? If you have a valid LMIA with a job offer, you don't need to show proof of funds. If I get approval for visitor visa, in which province? Oh, we just did that. What are the criteria for non-certified translation for a document that is not in English or French? Well, first thing, for a non-certified translation, or rather, in addition to what you would provide, first of all, the original copy of the original document. Second would be the translation. Third would be the affidavit from the individual who is translating, which states very specifically that they are the ones who are translating, and they are indeed in a position to translate, and that they have translated from the original document. And then the fourth would be a certified copy of the original. So you need to provide these four if you're using a non-certified translator. Wanted to check, does working on spouse work permit is eligible for additional points if other conditions are satisfied except LMIA, which is exempted for SWP? Thank you for making video. I honestly am not sure what you're trying to ask me here, but yes, if you are working in Canada on an eligible work permit, then your work experience on that eligible work permit is absolutely valid. So eligible work permit basically means any open work permit, closed work permit. If you're working with a valid work permit in a valid knock court, yes, that work experience is absolutely eligible for any immigration application. I sent paper-based application 6 months ago. In bank statement, I found my PR application fee taken by IRCC from my payment received. I have not received any AOR from IRCC yet. What should I do now? Well, do nothing. 6 months is not a long time, especially with a paper application. The average AOR time is anywhere between 9 to 14 months. So I guess you'll have to wait a bit longer then. Can I submit their profile in EE and apply for spousal visa at the same time? Yes, absolutely you can. There is no problem. If I made a mistake in my previous name in UK police certificate, can I reapply for a new one? Yes, I think you should be able to apply for a new one. My spouse is on a visitor visa, about to complete 6 months. I want to submit her spouse open work permit along with my postgraduate work permit extension. Can she stay here in Canada? Well, if you're going to apply, well, the best thing in this case would be to do a flagpole, but you said you are applying with your postgraduate work permit extension. So I'm assuming that you are currently working, you have a NOC 0AB level job, you have your pay stubs, and yes, if you apply for your spouse's open work permit along with yours, which you can, your spouse can continue staying in Canada. There is no problem with that because she would then be on an implied status, but she cannot work until the work permit has been approved. I just want to ask that I have not received the public policy extension. So my work permit expires on 13th of December, but I received the work authorization mail. Well, if you do not have a new work permit until, let's say, the month of December, then you go ahead and apply for the extension from your side. 1 year part-time postgraduate diploma while working full-time in India. Should I reduce my work experience for this time period by half as I'm claiming points under 2 or more diplomas, degree, or certificate? I am not sure what you are asking here, but if you are working while you are studying outside Canada, then you can claim that period of work experience. There is no problem at all. Any chance for BHMS homeopathy for healthcare? Well, you can obviously check individual provincial websites to see if your background is in demand and has any chances directly there. I have received my visitor visa and try to land in Canada soon. Could you please advise if I was invited through federal skilled worker while I'm inside Canada, can I get open work permit? No, you cannot. There is no provision for you to get an open work permit under the stream of federal skilled worker while you're applying there. In the 39 pages PDF, they mention about looking at CRS score for express entry for education experience and offer letter in Canada. This will happen on November 16 or next spring. November 16 is only for change of the tier system. This 39 pages that you're talking about is a broad provision of what IRCC is planning to do. So they are not planning to make any changes to the express entry at this point of time. what the document says is that they are reviewing the possibility, or they're reviewing of new version of express entry, where they may look at changing the points that they would give for Canadian education, experience, and offer letter in Canada. There is no implementation for the new points, more or less, I do not know, at any point of time, not now and not in spring. In spring, what we are expecting is the Bill C-19 to be implemented. I'm a PR about to marry soon. Congratulations. For outland spousal sponsorship, what type of wedding is preferable? Can we do Arya Samaj wedding? We don't want to spend much in wedding because it will cause red flags. Well, you can do any kind of wedding as long as you have an official marriage certificate from the registrar of marriages, the government department. Then you can do any kind of marriage. There is no problem. My application for PR was submitted on the 30th of September. I have not received biometrics instruction letter. How long does it take to receive this letter? This is variable. It varies from time to time depending on how many R10 applications they're processing. From the last update that I have, it was taking about 2 months for the AOR to come through. How much approximate time does it normally take to get LMIA processed? Okay, let's talk about LMIAs. We haven't spoken about LMIAs in a long time. Now, LMIA basically stands for Labor Market Impact Assessment. This is the document that is required for any employer who wishes to hire a temporary foreign worker or temporary worker from outside Canada. Labor Market Impact Assessment basically means that the assessment has been done by ESDC, Employment Social Development of Canada, to establish that by hiring or by bringing of a foreign worker to Canada, there will be no negative impact on the labor market in Canada, and it is not going to affect the employability or employment conditions for a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. This is the basis of this LMIA. Now, in order to apply for an LMIA, the employer must obviously advertise in the Job Bank of Canada. Not only in Job Bank of Canada, they also have certain other advertising conditions that they must comply with. They're actually quite strict, and you will have to advertise for at least 28 days and then conduct recruitment efforts. By recruitment efforts, I mean they have to sort of interview different candidates who may have applied, who are citizens and permanent residents. They have to identify why they cannot hire them. After they have completed their recruitment effort and established that they were not able to identify any Canadian citizen or permanent resident, at that point of time, they can make an application to ESDC. They can do an online application or they can email the application. The fee for this application, if it is not specifically to support the permanent residents, if it is a high wage or a low wage, the fee would be 1,000 Canadian dollars, which the employer has to pay. And after that, the application goes into processing queue. At some point of time, ESDC officer will set up an interview with the employer in most cases. If that employer has never applied for the LMIA before, for example, they would also have to provide a lot of financial documents, financial data, their balance sheets, their notice of assessments, their PD7s for the other employers, for their other employees, to show that they have been in compliance by paying the salaries on time. And of course, their financials will also have to establish that they are in a position to hire a temporary foreign worker and get that person into Canada. Based on this, the ESDC officer will conduct an interview, which is usually a phone interview. During the interview, the ESDC officer is looking to establish whether this employer or this company is indeed in a position to hire the foreign worker, and there is a genuine need for this person to be hired, and they have made genuine effort or genuine attempt to hire a local. When I'm saying a local, I mean Canadian citizen or a permanent resident. Only once the ESDC officer is satisfied or convinced, only then they will issue an LMIA or a positive or a neutral LMIA, using which then the employer could possibly have you as an applicant apply for a work permit. And depending on the kind of LMIA, you may also be able to use that document for 50 to 200 points. 50 points for NOC 0A or B, and 200 points for 00 NOC. And if that you have the positive LMIA or a neutral LMIA, then you will be able to get those points for your express entry application as well. This is the process for LMIA. The processing time. So the first time, obviously, you have to prepare the advertisements. You have to advertise for at least 28 days and then conduct the recruitment efforts. That can take roughly 30 to, sorry, not more 30, you take more than that, about 40 to 45 days. From there on, the application processing time is roughly 40 to 45 days. So you're looking at about 3 months from the start to getting your application approved or application decision being rendered. So that would be the approximate processing time for this application. Hope that helps. Okay, what is the success rate of ICT work permit extension from inside Canada for an owner Intra-company transfer processing time on the website shows 167 days, but any likelihood of reduction? No, I can't tell you if that could be reduced or there is a likelihood of reduction, because that entirely depends on IRCC's processing queue. But the success rate is quite high. I mean, again, as an ICT owner of a company, you have to be able to establish that you were able to achieve whatever your business fundamentals were, or whatever your business intentions were, objectives were. I mean, if you did not create any jobs, if you did not contribute in any manner economically to the business, to the business market or the labor market, then they may choose to not process that application. But as long as you created at least one job and your finances show that there is an active engagement for you as an owner and that the business is indeed operational, then the chances are that you would get approved again. If express entry quota 56,000 for 2022 is over in November itself, when and how will the next year quota and leftover applications begin? Well, they don't stick with the numbers rigidly. It's not like on this and this date, the number of quota is complete, so we will not issue anymore. It's a dynamic number. It's sort of a variable number. Even if you were to see the IRCC's quota or the multi-year level immigration plans, it's a broad range. It's not a fixed number. So they will always issue document, or they will always issue applications within that broad range and not a specific number. My application for PR under Federal Skilled Workers Program under Express Entry was submitted. Oh, we just did this, right? Did we? Yeah. We did this. What documents do I need to submit if I claim points for LMIA 50 points? You will need to show a copy of the LMIA, which should still be valid if you don't already have a work permit and are working for that employer on that job in Canada. So you'll need your copy of your LMIA, you need an employment job offer, and you will need an employment job contract. Your employment job offer should categorically and specifically say that this job offer is valid for 1 year or 12 months after you become a permanent resident or your PR visa is approved. In addition to that, you obviously will provide all other documentation with regards to your work experience so that you can show that you are qualified to perform the job. Rahul, thank you for the super chat. Can we change the status of closed work permit to open work permit? Yes, you can, only if you have submitted your PR application. Once you submit your PR application, you will be eligible to apply for a bridge open work permit. At that point of time, even if you are on closed work permit, you will be eligible to apply for an open work permit. Sri Lakshmi, thank you for the super chat. I am a student in Canada, applied for wife visit visa, refused. Can I apply for judicial review? I graduate in March. Should I apply for spouse open work permit now or after grad, as I will need to apply again later? Well, if you are applying for your spouse's open work permit, your own permit or your own status should be valid for at least 6 months. That is the first criteria. In your case, we are already in the month of October. You're expiring in March, which might actually put you on that edge of that 6-month requirement. So your application has a possibility of getting refused again. Before you apply for judicial review, and you can apply for judicial review if you feel that there was an error in law or fact that was made by the visa officer. But before doing that, you should apply for a GCMS notes to understand where did you go wrong in your application and what was the concern of the visa officer. You might not have to go for judicial review at all because it's an expensive process. So by understanding the reasons for refusal, you could actually just reapply, and that would be much faster and cost effective for you. JB, thank you for the super chat. I'm on postgraduate work permit expiring on 25th of Jan. Wife is on spouse open work permit, CRS 440 with 2 years of work experience. Draws stopped, couldn't get invitation. What options do I have? Company won't help for LMIA. Well, then in that case, you should start looking for other employers who can help or support your application in PNP. Unfortunately, with the score of 440, you will not have any other option. If you will not be able to apply for a PNP with the support of the employer, you will very soon find yourself running out of luck. So sooner than later, start identifying an employer who can support your application in the PNP itself, and then apply within the PNP and then with your PR. How does New Delhi visa office verify cash salary work experience? Do they visit the office or documents is enough? Well, in most cases, they might just be happy with the documents if they're able to establish that they are genuine and that indeed that a cash salary is possible there. They can also call the employer. They can call the switchboard. They can talk to other employees. And yes, in this absolute extreme circumstance, they could also visit your workplace. They could also call you for interview and question you and query you or sort of, quiz you as to what exactly was going on there. Because thank you for the super chat. Unfortunately, there's no question there, so there's nothing I can answer there. How long does it take to get your passport request after you passed your medicals for Canadian study permit? I'm in Ghana. There is no specific timeline for milestones. The total processing time is available on the website. I'm sure you can check that. What will happen to the already created EOI profile in Saskatchewan after 16th of November? Should we create a new EOI with tier system and cancel the existing one? Don't do anything as of now. They are still processing the back end. As and when they will make the changes, they will announce what needs to be done. At that point of time, you can take the required steps to make sure your profile is back into the pool with the corrected knock code. Ooh, long question. I have a quick question. And whenever something starts with a quick question, it's never a quick question. And to understand your perspective, my extended postgraduate work permit renewal email was sent to me. I opted out because I had to change. The concern is I got my permit from Niagara border, like physically due to emergency travel plans that I had. I did withdraw the application, which was applied through GC's portal. The question is, because the permit was given to me physically, how do I change the address? The email that I received said what? Said what? We don't know what it said. Anyways, the best thing is that if you are in a situation where you're facing a dilemma like this, you should, again, you're changing your address to whatever your current address is. And if you cannot do that, then simply apply for the extension. Apply for the extension under public policy. That will keep you safe. You will not have any issues with that because you applied for the extension. Yes, it might cost you that $155, but then, hey, you will get your work permit for 18 months. So that should be fine. Ontario Masters application went into assessment August 2022. Still haven't heard back. What's the timeline? The timelines with Ontario has been running quite long. We have seen 120 days being quite normal with them now. Parents visa reject हो गया, newborn grandson को देखने के लिए जाना था. Well, I'm sorry that happened, but unfortunately, usually there is no guarantee that a visit visa will be approved depending on whatever you have provided. अगर आपके स्ट्रॉन्ग टाइज नहीं दिखा सकते, आपके फाइनेंसेस आप नहीं दिखा सकते, आपके रियल एस्टेट प्रॉपर्टी नहीं दिखा सकते, आपके बिजनेस एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंगेजमेंट्स आप नहीं दिखा सकते, आपके पास्ट ट्रैवल रिकॉर्ड्स या ट्रैवल हिस्ट्री नहीं दिखा सकते, तो उस सूरत में विजिट वीजा जो है थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है और उसका कोई रेजोल्यूशन नहीं है. आप अप्लाई कर सकते हैं थोड़े टाइम के बाद, आफ्टर आप कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट्स और प्रिपेयर करें, उसको फिर आप थोड़ा और स्ट्रॉन्ग बनाएं और उसके बाद अगर आप चाहें तो आप फिर अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. ऑल्टरनेटिवली आपके जो ग्रैंडसन है, आपके बेटा या बेटी के साथ में, आपको जहां भी आप हैं वहां पे भी आपको विजिट कर सकते हैं, वो भी एक पॉसिबिलिटी है. Vikas says expected to drop CRS to 475 in April 2023. Well, it's a possibility, yes, but who's to say? Because there is so much of changes, so much of dynamism in the pool right now. There are so many things getting added and upgrading the scores in the pool. I mean, look at it this way, right? On the 6th of July, the number of people in the express entry pool with scores of more than 500 was about 6,000 something. I don't remember exactly, but I can pull that up. 6,000, let's say 7,000 people in the express entry pool on 6th of July. Now, 8 draws have passed. We are now in the month of October. Still the score is 500. And still there are so many people who are getting added into the pool every single draw with score of 500 plus, which tells you more than 20,000 people got added into the express entry pool with scores of 500 ever since the month of July. So that tells you that even as we progress in future with each draw, it's not like that the draw happens and the profiles get cleared out and nobody gets added there and it remains like that. It's not like that. So the pool is very dynamic. The number of people who are getting added are at an all-time high. So while 475, if you see mathematically, it is a definite possibility, but then we can never say how many people are getting added into the express entry pool with high scores. There is no way to speculate or estimate that. I would be definitely looking at options to improving or increasing my score if at all that was a chance. But by mathematical numbers, it is a fair possibility, yes. Can a pet hold, is that what you're asking? Pet? Can a pet hold open work permit and ICT at the same time? Okay, I'm not sure what you're trying to ask there, but can you hold an ICT and a spouse open work permit at the same time? Well, you can technically have multiple applications, but if you already have an open work permit, then what is the requirement for you to have a ICT work permit unless you're trying to look for a 50 or a 200 points there? So IRCC can always have that as a question or a concern, but technically you can have multiple applications. That is not an issue. Not sure who you're referring to, but I would let that go. Okay, I know there are lots of questions, but unfortunately I gotta run. It's a Saturday morning, some other things to be done. If I haven't been able to answer your question, then please do post them in the comments below. I will come back later and try and answer as many questions as I can. Thank you very much for joining in. Take care, stay safe, and I shall see you next time.